Maneva na sema PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.
I would rather we stick to truths than myths. I would rather we call out the issues for what they really are. I would rather we stop massaging the issues and would rather we stop just taking statements, whether you call it doomso or not. The stark reality is that people go home to unplanned, power outages. And the sad thing is that you cannot even plan anything for your own self, especially when there's no timetable. So I have said elsewhere that the difference between the former doomso situation and what you have now, which I term as doomkra, is that at least the doomso bit.
Why?
Well, this is doomkra because you don't even know when it's going to go off, and you don't even know when it's going to come back on. If you had an idea, it helps. If you know that Tuesday morning your office enclave is not going to have power, you probably will plan to charge your laptop somewhere so you can get some work done if you still have to be in the office, or do out of office work remotely. Unfortunately, you are there and it just happens, boom, and it's gone.
But the ECG in their latest statement said this could be localized faults, and if you're experiencing power outages.
You see, Alfred, I'll demonstrate why they are not being candid with us. And I think that for all of us as a generality, we've also not helped them at all because we've done the picky cherry thing for too long. In 2014-2015, the Energy Ministry commissioned a certain work to be done on the power sector, especially at the height of doomso. What can we do to make ECG a lot more viable? That report exists. Alfred, one of the conclusions of that report was that we should get a PPP, the public-private partnership, for ECG done. If you recall, at the outset of this government from 2017, they saw that report and decided to implement what infamously became known as the PDS debacle, right? Among the checklist that we should have, been sure existed was the need to do, proper selection so that the people we are actually asking to partner ECG to come in to inject some level of efficiency in the sector were coming in with at least some minimum investment. Mm-hmm. They were coming in with something that we could hold them to as and when they fail to perform. One of the checklists was that insurance or bond guarantee, which was waived off because we decided as a people and a government to do family and friends chronism, right? If you recall, one of the fallouts was that the American government through the MCA had a certain $500 million injection they were going to put out into ECG activities to make them more vibrant, more efficient. Mm-hmm. Our own corrupt practices as a people, as a government, saw to it that that investment was taken away, right? Mm-hmm. Mind you, ECG had a certain timetable that it needed to meet certain efficiency, I should call them timelines, right? So you want to reduce transmission losses or technical losses and all of them, right? You want to be able to detect how many people are plugged onto your subsystems illegally. Unfortunately, we decided that the Americans should take their money away. And when we dared them, we had no alternate plan in place, right? Mm-hmm. To find the monies elsewhere to inject into ECG. So when I saw Senior Gabi Ochredako lamenting that this seems like, somebody...
This is mysterious.
Somebody is...
In fact, we have that tweet by Gabi Ochredako. We'll put it on. It says, you kept the light on for 7 years. And then in your last year, all of this is happening.
You see, you can massage hunger up to a point, but it will expose you up to a point when your body can no longer handle it. You can massage the power sector up to a point, but I have always said the energy sector is primarily numbers driven, okay? Mm-hmm. You can decide today that, everybody should go and take free fuel if you want. But the numbers will catch up with you because people are consuming something and you are not getting the returns that you need on it. You can decide today to deny all you want that ECG is not having a load shedding program and that it is because of some faulty, transformers. That is why we are here. The truth of the matter is that you have not been able to make do your commitments with the IPPs, right? Mm-hmm. You have not been able to make do your financial commitments to WAPCO, the West African Gas Pipeline. You have not been able to inject any capital necessary to the power sector to ensure that the transformers that you are getting are probably as new as they should be. You are not even able to inject, right, money to a greater efficiency for ECG. ECG goes out there to collect money. The cash waterfall mechanism that should have been in place to ensure that, look, BUI introduced 2% to the grid, Car Power introduced 10%, this one did this, these are their invoices. Okay, I cannot be able to pay all. Car Power get 60%, you get 40%, get 80%, get... That cash waterfall mechanism arrangement is also not being followed. And Alfred, one of the most intriguing things I came across just last week is to the extent that...
Let's go back to that slide. Let's go back to the first slide. ECG, in this response to the PURC directive, said that they had complied with the order on the cash waterfall mechanism and the payment of the tariff revenues as prescribed as of the 26th of March 2024. And they attach a schedule. And SOEs have been paid. The independent power producers have also been paid their due amounts in Ghana cedis. For those IPPs that have to be paid in dollars, the Bank of Ghana is working on paying the dollar equivalent of payments due. That's the response again.
Alfred, the truth of the matter is this. We can massage the power sector all we want with grammar, but the numbers would still expose you. As we speak, the IPPs are owed in excess of 1.5 billion. I am not sure any
$1.5 billion.
Billion USD. I am not sure any business anywhere will be okay enough to continue, taking bank loans, to be able to continue supplying you the power. So some of them will go off at some point. Mm-hmm. Again, we are also not even accounting for what we collect from the people. The other intriguing thing I was about to come to that I found out is to the extent that we are, supplying close to 150 megawatts, right, to our neighboring countries, Benin and all of them, right? That amount that is realized from the power that we supply to these neighboring countries doesn't even come to ECG, cannot be reported to ECG. Yet ECG, as the off-taker from the power producers, is supposed to pay everything to the power producers. So indirectly, we create a problem in there. We find a way so that the revenue inflow stream to ECG is not all accounted for. Then again, you talk of transmission losses, right? As we speak, is about 30%. So what it means is that every $100 million worth of power, right, that is generated, transmission and technical losses alone would account for 30%. 30 million will be lost, right? We are not investing. Neither are we even accounting for the power sector properly. Unlike petroleum, I always say this. If you've been able to deregulate the petroleum sector, making sure that BDCs, you bring product, it is $1, sell for $1 at cost plus margin or markup, right? So that you don't come back to the state to say we owe. If it is the same situation with the power sector, you deregulate it through that PDS arrangement, which has now become, the infamous, corrupt, special purpose vehicle that has seen your 200, 300 million Ghana cedi sitting with one of the banks, right? Which has now become a subject of litigation. When you do these things over a period, Alfred, you are simply burying your head in the sand and pretending that because you cannot see Alfred, the rest of your body, which is open to Alfred, he cannot see it. So we'll continue to manage the power sector with grammar. The sad reality is that people don't go home to the grammar. They go home to power outages. They go home to darkness. The sad thing is you don't even know whether it is coming 10 o'clock, 11, 12, 1. You are there, it comes. if you are lucky. The next morning before you are out, it goes off again. You don't even know when it's going to go off, when it's going to come back. And the heat wave in the country, I would want to caution our political, office holders. Perhaps their gen sets are working, right? Perhaps they are privileged. But if you enter normal Ghanaian homes, the kind of heat that greets you, and when they need power to at least get life to a certain normalcy, we don't have the power to give them. We manage them with grammar. I think we are all to blame. We saw the trappings of this 7 years ago in 2017, 2018, PDS, at the height of all of that. We told the MCA to take away their 500 million USD. Alfred, you know how much work that could have done for all of us? Not to go back to Dumso. I have said, any government that takes over from this government, right, be it an MPP government or an NDC government, would suffer the same fate the John Mahama administration suffered, because, one, we are not investing in the power sector. Forgetting that each single year, there's a growth of 20 to 25% that you need to plan for. We decided to play the grammar again.
That's growth in terms of the demand for electricity.
Yes.
Okay.
So once the demand numbers are growing, and you are not planning, you are not plotting, you are not adding or injecting any new streams of generation, it will simply catch up with you. Initially, we were doing a peak of 2,300 megawatts. Now we are 3,700, hitting 4,000. So if your install capacity is 5,000 and you need a certain reserve margin, you are not going to get that reserve margin. You cannot operate at the install capacity simply because you've added not a kilowatt. And the distribution losses also continue to pile up and increase. So Alfred, beyond the grammar, beyond telling us there's nothing wrong, oh no, it's just from transformers that we are dealing with, so don't worry. It's the issue of financing. It's the issue of planning, right? It's the issue of capital injection. How much have we input into ECG's activities by way of technology, right? Elsewhere, in the European countries, every transformer, the amount of power it receives is accounted for. Every single transformer. Technology would allow you to know when power is going waste elsewhere, to be able to track and trace. Here, we don't care. We would rather go to the people, those who buy prepaid, and wipe out their credit. Sometimes we just wipe it out. Alfred, you don't do these things and be issuing statements. The reality on the ground is that, look, if you like, write all the grammar, write PhD thesis, right? The reality is that when I go home and there's no light, it is doomsday for me.
Well, the ECG says that it issued over 100 power outage notifications within the first 2 months, 2.5 months of the year, with the majority attributed to maintenance activities. So over 70% of the power outages were due to planned maintenance works.
Alfred, let me not even glorify that. If you concede issuing over 100 outage notifications, it tells you there's a lot of pressure on your load or your system, right? There's a lot of problems that would need a certain amount of capital to deal with, right? Your transformers are blowing, right? It tells you that some of them are overaged. What kind of audit have we done on them? What kind of pre-planning are we doing on them? Are we just waiting for the overaged, overused, obsolete transformer to blow so that we go and fix? Are we planning? Are we auditing them? Alfred, the whole grammar that ECG will construct, all the grammar that they would want us to now focus on Gridco, Ghanaians are saying we don't buy power from Gridco.
But you would agree that the upstream sector also has questions to answer with what is happening. At least,
Alfred,
is it not?
Are you really paying Ghana Gas for the gas you take from them? Are you paying them? Does Ghana Gas indeed have to now go for overdraft sometimes to pay their workforce?
They go for overdraft to pay their staff.
Check with Bui. We have overrun Bui to a certain extent. That Bui at peak cannot even generate half their installed capacity to you. Are we paying them? Is the cash waterfall mechanism working as it should? Exactly what are we doing with the power sector? I have said this. If you can deregulate the petroleum sector, find a way, a reasonable way to deregulate the power sector. Look, Accra West, right? Allow people with a certain capacity or muscle to bid, right? They can manage the amount of power and distribution network over there. If there are issues there, it's easier for them to handle it than ECG dealing with everything across country, except for NETCO, right? The northern.
Yes.
ECG is probably overburdened. And I think that we are also not injecting the necessary capital to help them become more efficient. So we continue to, use grammar. Alfred, that's a word.
So largely, this problem we're experiencing is a financial problem.
And it will keep recurring. Let me put on record. It will keep recurring simply because we are not addressing the problem.
Which is?
The financing of the sector. Right. Alfred, if you don't admit, like I have said, right, if you don't admit that it is hunger and you think it is stomach ulcer, you will be applying stomach ulcer medicine. Meanwhile, all you need is food. So until they admit to the issue and have a roundtable dialogue or stakeholder dialogue with everybody, right, to say this is where we are, these are the challenges, how do we confront them? Does it mean we need to probably add up a little on the tariff? If it is not tariff, the power we export, do we need to upscale it so that we can get more revenue to be able to cushion the IPPs here? If that revenue is even coming to ECG, should it not go straight to the IPPs who are generating the power, right? Unfortunately, 150 megawatts, right, that we export, the revenue, I am told, doesn't even get to ECG. Yet ECG is supposed to pay the IPPs for generating power. Alfred, there are challenges. If we own up to the challenges, Professor Jampo would always say, you would find a solution. But if you don't own up to the challenges and you think that grammar and beautifying the scenarios or the situation to say that it's transformers that have gone off and we are fixing, and it's, bro, we are kidding ourselves. We'll get back to this problem in July. It could get worse before the end of the year. It will get worse by next year because we are simply not finding the funding or the financing gap to mitigate whatever
we
technical.
We should still be worried despite the release of the ECG that they've had a stable,
You see, Prof,
should we still be
just
worried?
the end of last year, this issue cropped up. There was power outages here and there. They managed it. You remember the IPPs had issued threats that beyond a certain threshold, they were going to shut down their plants.
Yes.
Finance Ministry will call the IPPs and issue them with some, assurances or comforts, right? We will come back the following month. IPPs are still asking for their monies. It's not been paid to them. We are simply managing the energies or the power sector with grammar, basically. And that is why we are where we are. Until you deal with the problems structurally, until you admit that there's a financing gap between what ECG collects, right, and what we produce. Look, this is a country that is almost subventing power to the tune of 250 million USD every single month. If this is sustainable, let them admit. It's not sustainable.
Well, Lawyer, I'm bringing you, because beyond the politics, really,
Maneva na sema PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.